crazy, willing, at peace.
The Brave Files are supported by Julian Desjardins, a certified strategist for small business owners. If you've already made that brave decision to start your own business, it's time to stop trying to do it all alone. Check out our show notes for more information or visit juliandesjardins.com.
You are listening to The Brave Files, real stories from people living courageously. You can listen to the show anywhere you enjoy podcasts, and we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on Apple Podcasts. It really does make a difference, and we appreciate it. Now here's your host, Heather Vickery.
Hey everybody, today I am welcoming a really long-time friend to the show. I've known Karren Kitto since our now teenagers were in preschool. That's a long time. Karren's here to share a story that I have always found extraordinary. The story of how she chose to be a surrogate for friends who were struggling to have their own child. The story definitely comes better when you hear it from Karren. Thank you so much for being here, Karren. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's been a long time since I've seen you.
I know. Time flies.
Time definitely flies quickly. Well, I'm excited to have you here. So I can set the stage just a little bit, but really this is deeply your story. From my perspective, we would see each other back and forth dropping the kids off at preschool and at play dates. And one day you shared with me that you had decided to be a surrogate for some friends. So you want to tell us how that happened?
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to look back on it. It's almost 10 years ago. I guess a little over 10 years ago that the seed in my head was planted. We had these friends who we'd met through another good friend and knew that they were, that what they wanted to be parents, but they hadn't been able to get pregnant or to stay pregnant. And I think because we often saw them with our kids, there was something, I felt really like they were better parents than I was in a funny way. And so to see them come into our home and immediately kneel down and grab a hug from whichever kid ran to them first and pick out a book and start reading and start playing, there was this part of me that was feeling like it was just a great injustice in the world that this couple didn't have kids. And I think that that's sort of where it began. Once we had our second baby and I knew I didn't want to have a third and felt like my pregnancies had been fairly straightforward, I cannot tell you, but I simply either woke up or fell asleep one night thinking, you know what, I could do this again for this couple and maybe I should offer. And that was really kind of how it started.
I remember that though. I legitimately remember you saying, I just don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. But kind of was a big deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously it's a pregnancy. It's not a non-deal. But I also remember thinking my crazy analogy was that I was going to pay their admission so that they could get into the amusement park. And it was like, okay, it's 9 months, whatever. And then they get to be in the amusement park, like for good. So yeah, it always seemed very, and it was a thought I couldn't unthink. Once it occurred to me, I couldn't think of a compelling enough reason to say, no, I don't want to do that. It just, I couldn't unthink it.
So the interesting thing to me about this is that it happened right when I got pregnant with my youngest. So the girls, so they're 8.
They'll be 9 in the fall. Yeah.
Yeah, in the fall, because our babies were born
within days of each other. Apart. Those babies were born December 4th.
Yes, and my baby was born November 30th.
Yeah, and somehow in that 5 days, you managed to recover sufficiently to bring me food after I got back from that experience.
I remember visiting in the hospital and seeing the baby leaving with their parents, and you were staying. Yeah. And you had, so we've skipped ahead. So let's go back just a little bit. You decided to go ahead and do this. You let your friends know you were fully invested. And what happened then?
Initially, the mom was overwhelmed. Essentially didn't know what to make of it. She still was holding out hope that she would be able to get pregnant and have a baby or babies. And so she didn't immediately want to let go of that hope. And, you know, we were friends, but we were not like true blue. We hadn't gone to high school together. We'd only known them for a few years. And I think in some ways it was kind of insane. And so I think that she was sort of like, are you like, really? Like you would do this? And so it took actually some time between when I first, made the offer, which was, out of nowhere for them, to when they kind of chewed it over and made peace with the fact, well, I can't say they made peace with, but accepted somewhat that they were not going to be able to, in fact, carry their own baby or babies, that maybe this was actually a good idea. And I feel like it was almost a year later that they suggested we go out for dinner. And my husband and I kind of chatted the night before and said, if they bring this up, are we still willing? And of course we were, but we kind of knew going into it. And, we sat at the restaurant and probably had a drink and it wasn't very long before they were like, so, and we're like, yes, we're still in.
There's this thing. Yeah. Okay. So I remember that moment, not that moment. I wasn't at dinner. But I remember that happening. Probably the next day, right? We saw each other 2 or 3 times a day, 5 days a week for years. And I remember you saying, we've had this conversation, we're doing it. And I distinctly remember you saying, I really only want to carry one baby. Do you remember that?
Oddly, I believe it, but I don't remember, but
you did.
Certainly don't doubt it.
You're like, I don't want, because they talked about, putting 2 embryos in and all of these things, or embryos, right? Surrogacy.
Yeah.
They were already embryos. And you were like, just one. I don't want to have multiple pregnancy. I don't want to complicate things. Well, lo and behold, you had twins.
Well, and yes, indeed, we did. And so the little step by step there is we transferred an embryo. They had a number of, 3. They had 3 frozen embryos. So just to be clear, the babies are the DNA of the parents completely. It was not my egg.
Yes, you were just.
We always used to say it was their buns and my oven. So I was, a gestational carrier. So they had 3 embryos, and we transferred one of them, and it did not take. And the chances of frozen embryos taking, are pretty slim. And so somewhat, this sounds so dreadful, but somewhat in order to simply use those remaining frozen embryos so that we could move on to fresh and have a better chance of having a fresh embryo take, the next time we just said, let's just plant both. I think it was a 9% chance that they would both take. So we were comfortable with those odds, and we thought it makes it a much more likely possibility that at least one of these will work, and let's just get on with the show here. And that was when indeed both of them took.
Luck of the draw, friend.
Yeah, because the 9% chance. Yeah.
And of course, it was wonderful, but at the time it was a little shocking, right?
Yes, it was shocking. Wonderful and shocking. Absolutely. When we were at the ultrasound and she told us it was a 2 for 1. And the mom's first reaction was, I'm sorry.
I do. I remember that. So as I mentioned, I was pregnant with my 3rd child, as we've identified, at the same time. Now, you obviously became closer friends with the baby's mom as you were going through this process, and she would join you all the time. You were spending a lot of time together. She would join you at preschool drop off and pick up. And I remember, this is going to make me teary because it does every time it comes up. I remember she and I talking about our babies and our pregnancies, even though you were carrying her children. So, yeah, I do. I remember saying, I heard my baby's heartbeat today. And she was like, me too. And this is what my baby's doing. And I would say, this is what my baby's doing. And you were sitting next to us, growing and growing with her children. But this was still her experience. And that was something I will never, ever forget.
That's gorgeous. Man, I have like head to toe goosebumps. That's so funny. What a nice thing to share.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a really cool experience. Okay, So fast forward a little, and we're getting close to delivering these babies. And what happened?
I got sick. I had a condition called ICP, which I don't remember what that stands for, but the symptoms are insane itchiness in the palms of the hands and the feet. And what's bizarre is it's associated with an increased level of bile, and it's a liver issue, which is typically associated with too much meat and too much oily food and too much alcohol.
And
I was
vegetarian.
Exactly. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't eating meat. I wasn't eating oily food or rich food. So there was no, it was just completely bizarre that this happened. And it also it carries with it an increased risk of stillbirth. So that was
terrifying.
That was obviously terrifying. Yeah.
And at the same time, you're experiencing all of this discomfort and pain, which you have your own family and they had to experience somewhat along with you. It was really scary for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was. And my kids were 2 and 4 at the time, and they were rolling with whatever because they didn't know any different. But I wasn't sleeping well. I was itchy all the time. It was really strange and bad.
Yeah, really bad. So what did the doctors do?
Early C-section. So they kind of waited, tried to time it obviously to let the babies grow as much as they could without putting them at risk. And my discomfort and inability to sleep and so on was part of wanting to have the C-section and get them out. But obviously you also have to time it so that the babies have enough time to finish growing. So they were out, I want to say at 36, 35 weeks. They were certainly early, but they almost made 5 pounds when they were born. And that seemed to be the milestone that everyone had been hoping for.
Which is pretty incredible. It's a lot of pounds inside. I had that child of mine was just shy of 9 pounds. So it sounds like we were carrying about the same weight. That's a lot of baby.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And they were both, one spent a couple of nights in the NICU. One was basically fine, good to go right away. And as soon as they were out, my itching stopped. It was like a miracle.
That's extraordinary. I can identify only in as much as with all 4 of my pregnancies, I had hypermesis, which is this thing that makes you throw up constantly. And I had, again, talk about crazy percentages. I was this really tiny percentage of person that stayed sick my entire pregnancy. It's ridiculous.
And you kept signing up for more. I mean, if I had gone through that with my first 2, I can't imagine that I would have volunteered.
So yeah, I completely understand because the minute all 4 of my babies were born, my nausea, my throwing up completely stopped. But
wow,
pregnancy's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get that women do it all the time, and I did it 4 times and you did it 3 times, but it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. It is. And those twins were my 3rd C-section. And the doctor, when she was sewing me up, said, "You don't have much left here to sew up." She said, "I hope you're not planning to do this again." I was like, "No, we're good." She said, "If it helps, as your doctor, I'm officially telling you, no more babies."
No more babies.
Totally fine.
And a 3rd C-section is something some doctors won't even do. Did you have to get any sort of clearance from your own doctor in order to have these babies?
Well, yes and no. The parents are friends with a doctor who is a specialist in kind of high-risk pregnancies. So she was my doctor. And we all agreed and understood from the get-go that she would be taking care of me. And I think that, because she had met me and knew the parents, and I think it was a little bit of a special circumstance.
Okay. All right. So this is clearly like an extraordinary gift. I remember very clearly right after the babies were born, and I had the opportunity and the joy of meeting your parents on a number of occasions. And your mom saying, "This is your free dinner for life pass. Just drop this information and you never have to pay for dinner again for the rest of your life."
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
I mean,
yeah, they were proud. They were proud. They were initially baffled and concerned, and pretty quickly came around to just feeling like this was a really special, an amazing thing that technology exists for something like this to happen is first off sort of astonishing. And
it
then
is.
that I had wanted to be a part of it was, they really felt good about it.
Well, and it's interesting you say that they were a little baffled at first. From my perspective, and you and I were definitely in different places here, it was interesting, and maybe because I was at that time having my own child, but I legitimately, and I still don't think I could fathom carrying babies and then giving them away. And I've always really admired your ability to, you were always great about separating. I remember the kids talking about whose babies they were and what was happening. And I couldn't fathom not taking those babies home.
Yeah. And I never struggled with that. I never did. I have two. I'm thrilled with two. To have more would, that wouldn't be my, my first choice. And the fact that these babies are not mine. I didn't ever have that sort of emotional, wistful, there wasn't any of that. And it wasn't like it was a difficult thing that I overcame. It was just in my heart and in my head, I always had the utmost clarity that these little people, that I was going to take care of them and, cook them, but that they were not mine.
I think it's amazing. I really think.
And you know what? I would not have been able to donate an egg. And some people can do that.
That's
and
true.
and not bat an eye, but there's no way I could do that because that would be my baby. Even if it were in somebody else's uterus, that'd be my baby. And I can't imagine being able to do that and let go. But this, they're not my DNA. They just happened to hang out with me for a while.
Yeah. Well, so tell me what it was like. I don't know. I've never actually asked you this, or maybe I did, and I was in my post-newborn phase.
the days.
I hardly remember anything those days. But the babies are born. Did you hold them? I'm sure parents were in the room, if I remember correctly, or right there nearby. But did you get time with them, and what was that experience like?
They were whisked off to the NICU. So it was, I think, 1 or 2 days later that, and I had some post C-section, a little bit of drama and trauma where I kind of like had immensely low blood pressure and blah, blah, blah. So I kind of had my own slightly wonky recovery. And so once I was fine and the babies were fine, they brought them in and I held them and it was lovely. It was just sort of magical, really. But again, without the sort of wistful, just a very simple, like, there, wonderful, here they are. This is amazing.
All that work finally paid off. Did it just feel, I don't know, did you feel so proud?
Yeah. It was, I can actually vividly picture lying in the hospital bed. I had a corner suite and I remember the parents coming in each with one baby and holding their babies and just, I really just sort of took a moment to bask in like this lovely family that was there because I had helped them be there. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it's quite a story. So what would you say was the most difficult part of the decision, the pregnancy, anything?
Well, the end part where I was sick was definitely hard. There were, some family members who felt that I was misguided or who struggled a bit with me putting myself at risk for someone else's babies. So there were a couple of times there were some sort of somewhat emotional conversations about it. And then really just, I was exhausted. I needed naps all the time.
And you had 2 babies at that time.
Yeah, my kids were 2 and 4 and I was carrying twins. I just was just plain tired a lot of the time. But I wouldn't say, my memory isn't that it was stressful. I was really well looked after by the parents. as you were saying, the mom was super present, helping with my kids when she could, running me to all the appointments because these were her appointments as well. They had childcare arranged for me so that I could nap every day. So in that sense, it was certainly laborious, and yet not, I wouldn't say it was like stressful.
That's great. Would you do it again?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, not like today. Just
not
clear.
Today at our age, 10 years later.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I could go back in time, and have that decision to make again, knowing everything I know, I would not hesitate. I would absolutely do it again.
I love that about you. I so admire that about you. Are you in contact with the babies and their parents?
Yes, we see them regularly, 2 or 3 times a year. And my daughters love them, and they do definitely know that there's something special about the friendship and the relationship. My kids are now 11 and 13. I can't say that they really get it. They know that there's no DNA, but they still understand that the bond and the connection with those girls is, a little more special than just, which is kind of how I feel as well. Yeah, there's just a real warmth when we see them and a real kind of tenderness. And my kids, I know, they just think it's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
So we love to see them.
Yeah. What do the babies, they're not babies, the girls know about you? How do they refer to you, or do they at all, other than, our friend?
They know that they were in my tummy. Obviously, at some point that will get more specific and nuanced. There is a picture of me in their room, pregnant. And, the parents have always been extremely open that I was pregnant with them, but they are Mommy and Daddy's babies. And so there's, they just call me Karren. There's no kind of,
sure. Yeah.
There's nothing else than that. But they will certainly know that I was their gestational carrier. There's just it's like kids who are adopted and just grow up knowing it. There will never be a big reveal. It's just kind of part of the landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions I always ask at the end of my show is, how do you celebrate success? And I suppose I'd like to ask it a little differently with you in your situation. Was there any celebration for you after the babies were born? Was there something that you'd sort of been waiting for and couldn't wait to get your hands on to celebrate the fact that you had done this extraordinary thing?
The parents did send us to Mexico for a week.
Well earned, I say. Well earned.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome and very unexpected. We had been talking about taking a vacation and going somewhere and trying to arrange to have my parents come and look after the kids. And somehow one thing led to another, and the dad's aunt is a travel agent. So we were kind of working through her, and lo and behold, they just ended up arranging it and paying for it and sending us off. So that was pretty incredible. And really exactly what I needed was a week of just hanging around in a hammock and not having to look after anybody.
You earned it. You totally earned it, my friend.
Yeah.
Do you celebrate their birthdays?
Well, we often see them. And funnily, their birthday is 2 days after mine, which is within a week of my younger daughter. So it's a really busy birthday time. Mm-hmm. We've often seen them around at least somebody's birthday. And then we have a tradition that's part of their family, where we kind of have a fall get together, and his parents, the dad's parents come, and a bunch of siblings and other grandchildren, and we're always included in that. And that's near enough to the birthdays that it is kind of like this annual family celebration that we always feel really very touched that they include us. And then as I'm feeling like, oh, it's so sweet, then I think, well, it also kind of is nice. Like, it's reasonable that they would, there's a really special kind of connection there. And it's nice to be a part of that. And, my family lives in Canada. Mike's family lives in Canada. I don't have extended family here. And even something as simple as my girls getting to see the twins and their cousins and their aunts and uncles and have this kind of fun, chaotic family day every year is just a neat thing for them.
I would say, and I mean, I just, from my memory of all of this actually happening, you were, as soon as you got pregnant, you were part of their family. And yes, they absolutely embraced us. And,
her parents obviously still send us Christmas cards, and his parents give birthday presents to my girls, and it's really sweet.
One of the ways I always close the show is by asking people what their favorite charitable organization is to support. And this is important to me, and you know this, you know me, because giving back and being part of something bigger than yourself is just such an integral part of who I am. And I love that I have a platform and an opportunity to share different organizations with the listeners and people around. So Karren, what is your favorite charitable organization to support?
So this is the funniest thing, because my favorite charitable organization, are you ready, is Planned Parenthood.
It's awesome.
I donate money so that women who need abortions can get them. And there it is.
But I love it. And it's so much more than that, obviously. Planned Parenthood
is. Of course it is.
Of
course it is. Planned Parenthood, yeah. I just think the bizarreness of that is, the irony of it is awesome. But yeah, I obviously I take to heart being able to make your own decisions and being able to make your own choices and doing what's right for you. And so I do. I support Planned Parenthood. I also support the Oak Park Food Bank, trying to keep it local. And I support, trying to keep it global, a charity called International Rescue.
What's that one?
So those are it's really cool, because you pitch in your money and they'll kind of tell you a ballpark of what your funds will purchase. So you might spend $60 to buy blankets for a refugee shelter, or you might spend $150 to help build a well for a family, or $200 for a pair of goats. It's that kind of stuff. It feels very concrete.
That's very cool. So as always, we'll have the links to all of these organizations up on our show notes. I encourage you to check them out, learn more about them, donate if you can, give your time or your energy, or simply tell somebody else about the organizations. That's what's going to make the world continue to grow and be better and better and better. Karren, would you do me a favor and share your 3 words with me one last time?
Of course. Crazy, willing, at peace. And as I'm saying crazy again, it was crazy, but it was completely right.
Yeah, it was. I'm so glad that I got to be some kind of strange part of that by being around it and by absorbing the goodness and the energy and the love. I remember, like I said in the show opening, I remember coming to the hospital to see you and bring you food and seeing the babies. And it's something that I think about often. And you touched me with that too. It was bigger and more than just this family and your family. It's
That's
really
so nice. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. It's absolutely, absolutely true. I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing this really beautiful story with us.
Thank you for asking. It's really a neat trip for me, kind of into the past and into that time, and it's a nice one to kind of look back on.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for listening. You know, Karren gives us a nice reminder that extraordinary selflessness is in fact possible, and it can absolutely enrich your life and those lives around you. So that's all I have now. We'll see you next week. And as always, remember to choose bravely.
The morning after my interview with Karren, I received a really lovely email from her thanking me for the opportunity to share her experience and go down memory lane. Because of it, she'd had a great conversation with her young daughters about the experience and why she made the decision to carry these babies for another family. During that conversation, it occurred to her there really were a couple of horrible things, and she couldn't believe that she wasn't able to remember them during our interview. To quote Karren, "I guess like so many things, we block at least some of the truly horrible stuff." And she asked me to share with you what those 2 really horrible things were. The first one was having to inject myself with hormones to prepare my body to be pregnant. That was truly awful. Giving myself a needle was not fun, and being on those hormones was terrible. They made me enraged at times. It was ugly, and it was weird. And number 2, recovering from a C-section, my 3rd C-section, and after a pregnancy that had obviously been a little harder on me than the first 2. Neither of those experiences were pleasant, but it wouldn't have changed a thing if I'd known they were going to be awful. The Brave Files is also supported by Frizz Marketing, a boutique marketing firm offering tailored services to small businesses and nonprofits. Frizz helps you distill your authentic story and get in front of the right audience. Contact them today at frizzmarketing.com.
Thank you for listening to The Brave Files. Be sure to visit thebravefilespodcast.com to access the show notes and discover fantastic bonus content. Music composed and produced by Matt Lewis of Union Music, LLC.